Hello dear students of class 8, how are you all? I hope you are enjoying your studies and having fun with your friends. So I am back today with a new chapter of your history, that is chapter number 2, the expansion of British power in India. So let's see some learning objectives. In this chapter, we are going to study about mercantilism and the expansion of European trade, the EEIC early years, British conquest of Bengal, administrative structure under the British, then European rivals of EEIC, struggle for supremacy and expansion of the British Empire. So let's warm up. Look at the following pictures. So here 3 pictures are given. You have to identify the above pictures and then how did these personalities help expand the British power in India? So discuss these questions with your friends and teachers. Next up we have our application skills. In his groundbreaking work, Hind Swaraj, Mahatma Gandhi writes, recall the company Bahadur. Bahadur was a title given to the English East India Company. Who made it Bahadur? They had not the slightest intention of establishing a kingdom. Who assisted the company's officers? Who was tempted at the sight of their silver? Who bought their goods? History testifies that we did all this when our princes fought among themselves. They sought the assistance of the company Bahadur. We will now see how foreign trading company became the political master of the country. We will see what happened to the existing ruling groups and how the East India Company became a political power. So name the European trading companies which tried to establish control over India. So discuss with your teachers and write the answer of this question. Now let us start with our chapter. So our first topic is mercantilism and the expansion of European trade. The origin of English East India Company, that is EEIC, and its power lay in the economic theory and practice of mercantilism in Europe at that time. According to the theory of mercantilism, the prosperity of a country depends on its capability to produce more than it consumes and export more than it imports in order to maintain a positive balance of trade. तो mercantilism के according जो प्रोडक्शन था वो ज्यादा होने लगा कंजम्पशन से भी ज्यादा और जो ट्रेड था एक्सपोर्ट था वो भी ज्यादा होने लगा ताकि पॉजिटिव बैलेंस ऑफ ट्रेड मेंटेन रहे. The practice of mercantilism in Europe went hand in hand with monopoly of overseas trade. Now our next topic is European rivals of EEIC. First one is Portuguese. Among the European powers, the Portuguese were first to reach India. In 1498, the Portuguese navigator and explorer Vasco da Gama discovered new sea route to India from Europe. Vasco da Gama was the first one जिसने यूरोप से लेके इंडिया तक का सी रूट ढूंढा था. This was very long route. Traders who chose this route had to sail down the coast of the West Africa to the tip of Africa and then sail up again to Calicut, modern day Kozhikode in Kerala. However, for European traders, using this route had become necessary because of the rise of the Ottoman Empire in Turkey and West Asia, which disrupted the traditional land routes. तो और कोई रास्ता ही नहीं था उनके पास जाने का, इसलिए उनको ये वाला रास्ता लेना ही पड़ा. भले ये रास्ता बहुत लंबा था बट इसके अलावा उनके पास कोई भी चारा नहीं था. Subsequently, the Portuguese traders established settlements at Calicut, Cochin, Goa and Daman and Diu. They were the first European powers to establish their trading and administrative centers in the Indian subcontinent and elsewhere in the Southeast Asia, controlling most of the important sea routes in the region. But they were not successful for long and only managed to retain their possession in Western India. Goa remained with Portuguese till 1961, after which it became a part of India. After that, after Portuguese, we have the Dutch. By the early 17th century, the Dutch too were exploring the possibilities of trade in the Indian Ocean. They established their trading centers at Surat, Ahmedabad, Broach, Nagalipatnam and Masulipatam. However, they eventually shifted their attention to the Far East and established a colonial empire in Java and Indonesia. After that, another rival was the French. The French East India Company, established in 1664, sought to expand its base in India and posed a tough challenge to EEIC. The early French settlements in India were Pondicherry, now Puducherry, Chandler Nagaur, Mahe and Karaikal. The first French factory was established in Surat in 1668. In the middle of 18th century, when Dupleix was appointed the governor, his ambition to establish a French empire in India brought him into direct conflict to the British. Now after that we will now study the EEIC early years. So Captain William Hawkins led the first voyage of EEIC traders to India and sailed into the port of Surat. So he was the first one जो सबसे पहले English East India Company को इंडिया में लेकर आया था. The main Mughal port at that time on 24 August 1608. He eventually succeeded in obtaining certain trade concessions from the then Mughal Emperor Jahangir. As a result, a trading post was established in Surat by EEIC in 1609. So Jahangir से जो उस टाइम का मुगल एम्परर था उनसे परमिशन लेकर उन्होंने 1609 में अपनी पहली ट्रेडिंग पोस्ट सूरत में एस्टैब्लिश कर ली. Now Sir Thomas Roe arrived in India in 1615 as the English ambassador to the court of Jahangir. He stayed in India till 1619 and received a royal farman from Jahangir which allowed the EEIC to set up more factories and trade with India. So this is a picture of Sir Thomas Roe. Thus, apart from Surat, the English established factories at many other places including Broach, modern-day Bharuch and Ahmedabad. In South India, the first English factory was established in Masulipatam in 1611. The first English factory in Eastern India were established in Balasore in 1633, in Orissa and Hooghly 1651 in Bengal. Simultaneously, the English began to set up much bigger and strongly fortified operational bases at what would be known as the Presidency towns of Madras, now Chennai, Bombay, now Mumbai, and Calcutta, now Kolkata. To start with, they set up Fort St. George in Madras in 1639 on a piece of land taken on lease from its local ruler. Bombay, a group of islands, was under the control of Portuguese. In May 1661, when the British Prince Charles II married the Portuguese Princess Catherine of Braganza, he got Bombay as Catherine's dowry from her father King John IV of Portugal. Subsequently, the islands of Bomaba were given to the EEIC on lease for a sum of €10 per annum. In 1698, the company got the zamindari of 3 villages of Sultanati, Govindapur and Kolkata and built Fort William around its factory. It laid the foundation of the city Calcutta. In 1717, the EEIC was granted a farman by Mughal Emperor Farrukhsiyar, which reconfirmed their right to trade in Bengal, Bihar and Orissa upon payment of nominal sum annually. They also got additional rights to trade in Deccan and Gujarat. Through trade concession they got from different rulers, the EEIC and its European counterparts made huge profit. तो ट्रेड कंसेशंस लेकर जो EEIC के रूलर्स है और जो यूरोपियन कंट्रीज और जो यूरोपियन काउंटर पार्ट्स है उनको बहुत ज्यादा प्रॉफिट होने लगा. दे बॉट गुड्स स्पेशली कॉटन क्लोथ्स, सिल्क, स्पाइसेस, salt, petre, etc. in India and exported them to Europe. तो वो इंडिया में प्रोडक्शन करते थे और उसको सेल करते थे बाहर जाके, यूरोप में जाके। नाउ आवर नेक्स्ट टॉपिक इज स्ट्रगल फॉर पावर। With the establishment of trading companies by the various European powers, a struggle to have greater colonial possessions started among them. Throughout the 17th and 18th centuries, England and France, who had been traditional rivals in Europe, fought several wars when their political and economic ambitions clashed in India. Finally, by the middle of 18th century, the English were victorious after ousting all other European powers and from the Indian trade market. So now students, our next topic is Carnatic Wars. The Carnatic Wars, which were a series of 3 wars fought between 1744 and 1763, manifested the diplomatic and military struggles between French East India Company and the EEIC. The coastal Carnatic region, a dependency of Hyderabad, became the battleground of this struggle. So ये जो Carnatic War है, ये टोटल 3 wars है जो कि 1744 से लेके 1763 के बीच में लड़ी गई थी, और जो मेन ग्राउंड था जहां पर ये लड़ी गई थी वो था हैदराबाद. So let's study one by one इन तीनों wars को. So first is First Carnatic War, that is from 1744 to 1748. The First Carnatic War had its origin in Europe. यूरोप से स्टार्ट हुई थी. When a war broke out between England and France in 1742. The war in India started when British, supported the Nawab of Carnatic, captured some French ship. The French responded by capturing Fort St. George in Madras. In 1748, the war ended in Europe. With this, the First Carnatic War also came to an end. After that, Second Carnatic War start हो गई in 1749 to 1754. So, the Second Carnatic War started following the death of the rulers of both Carnatic and Hyderabad. In the War of Succession that broke out, the British and the French sided with opposite groups in Carnatic and Hyderabad. In the Carnatic, the two contenders were Chanda Sahib, supported by the French, and Muhammad Ali, supported by the British. In Hyderabad, the British supported Nasir Jung, while the French sided with Muzaffar Jung. Initially, the French succeeded in placing their supporters on the two thrones in 1749. In 1751, however, the British troops under Clive captured Arcot. Clive's success led to the additional victories for the British and their allies. The war ended with the Treaty of Pondicherry signed in 1754. After the end of Second Carnatic War, Third Carnatic War start हो गई. So the next is the Third Carnatic War 1756 to 1763. The outbreak of 7 Years' War, that is from 1756 to 63, resulted in renewed conflict between French and British forces in India, leading to Third Carnatic War. The British forces captured the French settlement of Chandler Nagor, now Chandanagar, in 1757. The British commander Ayar Kut decisively defeated the French under Count D'Lely at the British at the Battle of Bandiwash in 1760. So here, as you can see, the fort of Bandiwash in Tamil Nadu, where the decisive battle between British and French forces were fought. The war concluded with the signing of Treaty of Paris in 1763. As per the terms of this treaty, Chandler and Pondicherry were returned to France, and the French were allowed to have factories in India, but they were stopped from fortifying them. तो अब according to Treaty of Paris, French जो थे वो यहाँ पर फैक्ट्रीज तो बना सकते थे, बट उन पे कब्जा नहीं कर सकते थे. The French agreed to accept British protection in India. The treaty ended the French ambition of building an Indian empire, but made the British the dominant foreign power in India. Now next is the British conquest of Bengal. Disintegration of vast Mughal empire by the middle of the 18th century resulted in the rise of numerous independent kingdoms across the Indian subcontinent. Blinded by sheer opportunism and a tendency to promote their own interest, the ruler of these independent kingdoms gradually isolated themselves from one another. Most importantly, internecine conflicts among these encouraged the European colonial power to take advantage of the situation and established their territorial rule in India. Bengal was one of the richest provinces on the Indian subcontinent. The EEIC had been granted the right of duty-free trade by the Mughal emperor in 1717. This right was being grossly misused by company officials who carried out private trade without paying the duty. So without tax pay किए वो अपनी personal trade कर रहे थे. The company thus made huge profit by buying cheaply and selling at higher prices, thereby eliminating all competitors. The state under Nawabs consequently faced a huge loss of revenue. The last powerful Nawab of Bengal, Alivardi Khan, was succeeded by his grandson Siraj-ud-Dulha. He wanted to check the EEIC's bid to extend the fortifications of Fort William and check the gross misuse of free passes or dastaks that exempted company goods from taxes. He also refused to give more trade concessions and privileges to EEIC, which it had been demanding for some time. The French complied with Nawab's order to stop fortification of their territories, but the British refused to do so. Enraged by this, Siraj-ud-Dulha captured Calcutta and compelled the officials of the company to surrender. After that, we have the Battle of Plassey, that is 1757. So Robert Clive was sent from Madras Presidency to recapture Calcutta. He conspired with Mir Zafar, the commander-in-chief of Siraj-ud-Dulha. The EEIC official also managed to win over the important members of Siraj-ud-Dulha's court, such as Jagat Seth, that was the banker, and Omi Chand, a rich merchant. With their support, the British forces defeated the forces of Nawab Siraj-ud-Dulha in the Battle of Plassey in 1757. So सिराजुद्दीन ने उन लोगों से कलकत्ता वापस ले लिया था, बट इन 1757 उन्होंने बैटल ऑफ प्लासी स्टार्ट किया. उस बैटल में उन्होंने कलकत्ता सिराजुद्दीन से वापस ले लिया by dealing with the important men of Sirajuddin. With this victory, the EEIC became the real power in Bengal. In accordance with what the EEIC official had wished, Mir Zafar became the puppet of Nawab of Bengal. The company made heavy monetary demands which the Nawab was unable to meet. He refused to grant more trade privileges to the company. So the company deposed Mir Zafar and installed his son-in-law Mir Qasim in his place. After that, we have the Battle of Buxar, that is in 1764. Mir Qasim, the new Nawab of Bengal, soon realized his position of dependence on EEIC. He tried to consolidate his power to free himself from the company. To begin with, he dismissed all the Mir Zafar's officials who were close to the company. He also invited European mercenaries to train his soldiers in new methods of warfare. So in this, जो मिर जफर था वो अपने सोल्जर्स को और ज्यादा ट्रेन करने की कोशिश कर रहा था ताकि विद न्यू मेथड्स ऑफ वॉरफेयर एंड abolished the taxes on internal trade, much to dislike of the British. He also tried to check the misuse of trade privileges of the British. Mir Qasim's step angered the company's officials who decided to get rid of him. Here, this is a picture of Robert Clive. In the Battle of Buxar 1764, the combined forces of Mir Qasim and his allies Nawab of Awadh, Shuja-ud-Dullah and the Mughal Emperor Shah Alam II were defeated by the forces of the real masters of Bengal. In 1765, Shujauddaulah and Shah Alam II signed treaties with the EEIC at Allahabad. The Mughal emperor granted the Diwani, that is, the right to collect revenue from Bengal, Bihar and Orissa to the company. In return, he was given an annual tribute of 26 lakhs. The Nawab of Awadh had to pay the war indemnity of 50 lakhs. His kingdom was restored to him as a British protectorate. Now we have a fact file. One of the conspirators along with Mir Zafar in the Battle of Plassey was a rich moneylender called Omi Chand. He claimed a share of the treasure that the British would acquire after the battle. To deceive him, the British drew up two treaties, a fake treaty which mentioned Omi Chand's share and a real one which did not. The Diwani allowed the company to use the vast revenue resources of Bengal. These revenues could be used to purchase cotton and silk textiles in India, maintain company's troops and meet the cost of building company's forts and offices at Calcutta. Now we have dual administration. Robert Clive introduced the system of dual government or Dyarchi in Bengal. Under this system, the Nawab had powers of military and criminal jurisdiction, while the company exercised control over revenue. Thus, the company had all power but no responsibility, while the Nawab had all responsibilities but no powers or resources to run the administration. Under this system, Bengal suffered tremendously. Finally, Warren Hastings ended the dual government in 1772 and brought Bengal under direct control of the company's administration. So this is a picture of Warren Hastings' expansion of the British Empire. Having achieved full control over the rich province of Bengal, the EEIC embarked upon a policy of expansion of its territorial possessions in India through wars and alliances. Now, annexation through subsidiary alliance. The doctrine of subsidiary alliance was introduced by Marcus Wellesley, Governor General of India from 1798 to 1805. The purpose was to gain control over large tracts of India without carrying out direct wars. तो ये पूरे इंडिया पर कंट्रोल करना चाहता था but without wars. The Indian rulers accepting subsidiary alliance had to disband his army, keep British forces within his territory and pay for their maintenance. He was also forced to keep British officials called a resident at his court and expel all non-English foreign from his state. Besides, the ruler had to surrender control of all foreign affairs to the British and agree to abide by the decisions of EEIC. In return, the company promised to protect such rulers from external and internal dangers. The Nizam of Hyderabad was the first to accept the terms of the subsidiary alliance in 1798. The Nawab of Awadh accepted it in 1801 and ceded to the British about half of his territories. Peshwa Bajirao II accepted the subsidiary alliance as one of the terms of the Treaty of Bassein in 1802. So here you can see a picture of Marcus Wellesley. Now we have a topic, expansion through direct military confrontation. We'll start from Mysore. The rise and expansion of Mysore alarmed the officials of the company. It led to a series of wars between the company and the ruler of Mysore, Hyder Ali, and his son Tipu Sultan. 4 Anglo-Mysore wars were fought between 1771 and 1799. Despite of initial victories of Hyder Ali, his son Tipu suffered a heavy defeat at the end of the Third Anglo-Mysore War in 1785 to 94. Under the Treaty of Srirangapatnam, Tipu had to give away a large part of his kingdom, that is Coorg, Malabar and Dindigul, to the British. He also had to pay a huge fine and send two of his sons as hostages to the British. Starting में टीपू सुल्तान was winning the war, but at the end of the war, टीपू सुल्तान हारने लगा था. तो वो एट लास्ट हार गया और उसको काफी ज्यादा फाइन देना पड़ा और अपने 2 सन्स को उनका बंधक बनाकर भेजना पड़ा. Later, Tipu Sultan refused to sign the subsidiary alliance treaty offered to him by Lord Wellesley and died fighting at Seringapatam in 1799. This is a picture of Tipu Sultan. The British annexed a large portion of his kingdom and gave it to the Nizam of Hyderabad for his help. The rest of the kingdom was placed under the heir of his old ruling family, the Wodeyars, who accepted the subsidiary alliance. Now, after Mysore, we have Marathas. The British took advantage of internal differences among the 5 Maratha chiefs, that is the Peshwa, the Gaikwads, the Holkars, the Bhonsles and the Scindias, and interfered in their internal affairs, leading to 4 Anglo-Maratha wars from 1775 to 18. At end of 4th Anglo-Maratha war, the British defeated the Marathas and completely broke their power. So after Mysore wars, British जो थे वो Maratha wars भी जीत गए थे. The title of Peshwa was abolished. The Peshwa and Peshwa Baji Rao's territories were annexed to British Empire. और जो उनका लास्ट रूलर था पेशवा बाजी राव, उसकी सारी टेरिटरीज ब्रिटिश एम्पायर के अंडर आ गई थी. The other Maratha chiefs signed the subsidiary alliance treaty. After that, we have Anglo-Sikh wars. The death of Maharana Ranjit Singh in Punjab in 1839 was followed by a period of instability. The British took advantage of the situation and the first Anglo-Sikh war broke out as the Sikh army tried to cross the Sutlej and occupy Lahore. As you can see, this is a picture showing submission of Duleep Singh. The British defeated the Sikhs and the Treaty of Lahore was signed. Again, British ने Sikhs को भी हरा दिया था और उसके बाद एक Treaty of Lahore sign किया गया. It recognized Duleep Singh, the son of Maharana Ranjit Singh, as the ruler and his mother Rani Jindan as regent. The Sikhs had to pay a huge war indemnity and give away the parts of their territories to the British. However, soon the British accused Rani Jindan of anti-British activities and removed her from the power. So इस तरीके से उन्होंने सिख का भी जो पार्ट है वो कैप्चर कर लिया था और महाराणा प्रताप के सन और उनकी वाइफ ब्रिटिश के अंडर काम करते थे. इन लेटर स्टेजेस ब्रिटिश ने जिंदन को कुछ एंटी ब्रिटिश एक्टिविटी करते हुए पकड़ा तो उन्होंने उसको अपने पावर से रिमूव कर दिया. This led to the revolt of the entire Sikh stage. Lord Dalhousie declared war on the Sikhs. The Sikhs were defeated and the British annexed the state of Punjab in 1849. So इस तरीके से पहले ब्रिटिश ने मैसूर को कैप्चर किया, उसके बाद मराठास को कैप्चर किया और उसके बाद पंजाब को भी कैप्चर कर लिया. अब आफ्टर पंजाब हम देखते हैं कि ब्रिटिश ने कैसे सिंध और अफगानिस्तान को भी कैप्चर किया. In 1809, a treaty was signed with Amirs, rulers of Sindh, whereby they promised not to let the French pass through their territories, and the British promised not to transport arms through Sindh. However, during the First Anglo-Afghan War in 1839, they carried their armed forces to Afghanistan via Sindh. Sindh was annexed by Charles Napier in 1843. In the late 1830s and in early 1840s, the East India Company fought a prolonged war with Afghanistan and established indirect rule of the EEIC there. Now we have expansion through the doctrine of lapse. The doctrine of lapse was an annexation policy devised by Lord Dalhousie, the Governor General of India between 1848 and 1856. This is a picture of Lord Dalhousie. According to the doctrine, any princely state or territory under subsidiary alliance system would automatically be annexed if the ruler was incompetent or had died without a direct heir. This took away the long establishment right of an Indian ruler without an heir to choose or adopt a successor. The company annexed the princely states of Satara in 1848, Jaipur, Sambalpur 1849, Nagpur, Jhansi 1854 and Awadh in 1856 using this doctrine. Now we have tried this. Read the opening part of this lesson again. Would you now agree with Gandhiji's assertion that we assisted the company Bahadurs in their conquest of India? So discuss this question with your fellow members. Dalhousie also abolished titles and pensions of the heirs of childless Indian rulers and annexed their territories. Tanjore and the Carnatic were annexed in this manner. When Peshwa Bajirao II died, pension was denied to his adopted son Nana Sahib. The imperial title of the Mughal emperor was abolished after Bahadur Shah II. Dalhousie also annexed the state of Awadh in 1856. Now we have administrative structure under the British. So अभी तक हमने जाना कि कैसे ब्रिटिश ने पूरे इंडिया पर धीरे धीरे करके कब्जा कर लिया. अब हम उसके आगे से कंटिन्यू करेंगे जहां पर हम उसका एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव स्ट्रक्चर के बारे में जानेंगे. After the conquest of Bengal, the British Parliament passed a number of acts. The first important act was Regulating Act of 1773. This act placed the actions of the directors of the EEIC under the supervision of the British government. The activities of the EEIC were subject to the regulation in civil, military and revenue matters. A Governor General and 4 councillors were appointed to administer Bengal. Next act was the Pitt's India Act in 1784. So this act was passed to overcome the drawbacks of the Regulating Act. जो कमियां उनके Regulating Act में रह गई थी, वो कमियां उन्होंने इस Act में पूरी की. A board of control of 6 members was created, which included a Secretary of State from the British Cabinet. The Act put the administration of India into the hands of Governor General and a 3-member council. After that, we have the Charter Act of 1786. So this gave the Governor General power to act against the majority of the council in specific cases. By the Charter Act in 1813, the monopoly of the company over India's trade was abolished and the trade was thrown open to investment from private bodies in Britain. The Charter Act of 1833 ended the EEIC's trade in tea with China. The Governor General now became the effective ruler of the EEIC's territories in India. Civil service, army and judiciary comprised the main pillars of the British administration in India. Now we have civil administration. The need to set up a civilian administration arose when the EEIC started acquiring vast territories in India. Lord Cornwallis, regarded as the father of Indian civil administration, set up the structure of an independent civil service. Cornwallis stopped the practice of private trade and replaced the corrupt, disloyal and self-seeking officials with well-educated, honest, well-paid civil servants loyal to the EEI and later to the British Crown. He also raised their salary to Rs 1500 per month. In 1800, Wellesley established Fort William College in Calcutta to train civil servants in local languages and customs. In 1806, a similar college called Haileybury College was established in England to train civil servants. From 1853, all the recruits had to go through a competitive exam in order to qualify for the civil services. तो ब्रिटिशर्स ने कॉलेजेस ओपन करने स्टार्ट कर दिए थे ताकि वो वहाँ के लोगों को सिविल सर्विसेज में ला सकें, उनको ट्रेन कर सकें ताकि फिर ये सिविल ऑफिसर्स उनके अंडर काम करें. The ICS Act of 1861 established the Indian Civil Service. For administrative convenience, British India was divided into districts. In each district, there was a collector to collect revenue, a magistrate to maintain law and order, and a judge to administer justice. Now we have history in depth. In 1863, Satyendranath Tagore, the elder brother of Rabindranath Tagore, became the first Indian to successfully qualify the ICS exam. तो रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर के एल्डर ब्रदर, बड़े भाई जो कि थे सत्येंद्रनाथ टैगोर, उन्होंने वो पहले इंडियन थे जिन्होंने ICS एग्जाम को क्वालिफाई किया. Here this picture is showing India in the mid 19th century. Now we have the judicial system. Prior to the British rule, the basis of traditional laws of the Indian people in case of Hindus was Shastras, and in case of Muslim, the Shariat was the basis of justice. Both Warren Hastings and Cornwallis took steps to set up a new judicial structure in India. In 1772, according to the system of justice established, each district was to have two courts, a criminal court and a civil court. While civil court was presided over by the EEIC collectors, the criminal courts were left in the hands of natives like Qazi and Mufti, who worked under the supervision of the collectors. Under the Regulating Act of 1773, a Supreme Court was established in Calcutta with Elijah MP as its Chief Justice. By the Act of 1781, it was decided that the English law would be strictly applied only in cases involving British citizens, while Indian would be tried under their own traditional law. In 1793, the famous Cornwallis Code was compiled for the guidance of the officers of the new judicial service. In 1833, a graded structure of courts came into being. In 1865, high courts were established in Calcutta, Madras and Bombay. So पहले सुप्रीम कोर्ट बनाया गया था इन कलकत्ता और अब हाई कोर्ट्स बनाए गए इन कलकत्ता, मद्रास एंड बॉम्बे. The codification of laws was meant to establish judicial equality in the laws which applied to both the rulers and the ruled. This was a principle of the rule of law. However, even though the judicial system professed equality before the law, but Europeans were tried in special courts by British judges. वैसे तो रूल ऑफ लॉ के अकॉर्डिंग सारे सिटीजन्स लॉ के आगे इक्वल है, लेकिन ब्रिटिशर्स को या यूरोपियंस को एडवांटेज देने के लिए उनकी जो कार्यवाही होती थी वो अलग से की जाती थी. Independence of judiciary was another important aspect which the colonial rule introduced in India. This meant that the judiciary was free from the influence of both the political and the civilian administration. Next we have the army. The bulk of the company's army consisted of Indian soldiers called sepoys, while its officers were exclusively British. The highest position held by an Indian soldier was that of a subedar. तो जितने भी हायर पोस्ट होती थी उसपे ब्रिटिश ऑफिशियल्स होते थे, और जितनी भी नीचे वाली पोस्ट है जैसे कि सिपाहीज और सूबेदार, उस पे इंडियंस को रखा जाता था ताकि वो इंडियंस पे रूल कर सके. In the early 19th century, the British developed a uniform military culture. Soldiers were subject to European style of training irrespective of their caste and communities. Now we have value and life skills. We must ensure that we live in a corruption-free society. This can be possible only if we are honest, trustworthy, and do not cheat others. Greed and corruption hamper the progress of the nation. So with that, we are at the end of this chapter now. Let's revise what we have studied in this chapter. So here we have recapitulation. Huge demand for Indian goods compelled European countries to find new routes to India. The ideology of mercantilism influenced the European power to establish their factories in India. The British, the Dutch, the Portuguese, and the French established trading companies in India. After the Carnatic Wars, the British emerged as the supreme European power in the Indian subcontinent. EEIC's victory in the Battle of Plassey gave the British a strong foothold in India. Clive introduced a a dual system of government in Bengal. Lord Wellesley's subsidiary alliance enabled the British to control Indian states without annexing them. The British fought wars to subjugate Mysore and Marathas. The British annexed Sindh in 1843 and Punjab in 1849. So with that, our chapter is over now. Read the chapter once again by yourself, and we'll meet in the next class with a new interesting topic of history. Till then, take care of yourselves.